"You're not college material." He said it like he was finishing a conversation we'd already had, not loud, just certain. I was holding my glass. Orange juice. It had gone warm. I remember that more than anything else. Brandon leaned back, one arm over the chair like he belonged there more than the rest of us. "Let's be real," he said. "She's not built for it." My mom didn't answer right away this time. She looked at me, then at the folder in my bag. "Maybe we should at least," she started. Brandon cut in. "For what? So she can send this out and get rejected everywhere." My dad let out a breath. "Slow. He has a point," he said. "We don't want you going through that." My mom nodded after a second. Not quick, but she did. "It's not about hurting you," she said. "It's about being honest." That was it. That small shift. I felt it settle in my chest. Not sharp. Just final. I said. I already applied. Brandon didn't react. With what scores, my mom's voice tightened. "Lila, we've seen your grades," my dad added. "There's no shame in choosing something more practical." I reached into my bag and pulled the folder out. I had brought it because I thought honestly that if they saw it, they might pause. I set it on the table. Brandon took it before I could say anything. He flipped it open, slow, like he was checking something that already belonged to him. Then he stopped. "Oh." He turned the page slightly so everyone could see. 1090, he said. "This is what you're working with." My mom closed her eyes for a second. "Lila," my dad shook his head. "That's not going to hold up." Brandon kept going, skimming my essay. "You actually thought this was enough," he said. I didn't answer, because none of this was about what was true. It was about what they were willing to believe. Brandon closed the folder and stood up. My mom said, "Brandon, just," but she didn't finish it. My dad didn't move. Brandon walked to the fireplace, opened it, and held the papers there for a second. Long enough for anyone to stop him. No one did. Then he let them go. And just like that, it was decided for me. The paper burned slower than I expected. The edges curled first, darkening, then folding in on themselves. My name was still visible for a second, Lila Hart, before it blurred into black. Brandon watched like he was waiting for proof. "See," he said. "That's done." My mom shifted in her seat. "Brandon, just that." Nothing more. My dad stepped closer to the fireplace, hands in his pockets. He looked at the pages, not at me. "It's probably for the best," he said. "We should have talked about this sooner." My mom nodded, quieter this time. "We didn't want you getting your hopes up. Getting my hopes up." I stood there, not moving. Because if I did, I'd have to admit I thought this would go differently. Brandon turned back toward me. "You should be relieved." I looked at him, relieved. "Yeah," he said. "Now you don't have to pretend you're something you're not." My mom added, "He doesn't mean that in a bad way." He did. My dad pulled his chair out and sat down again, like we were just resetting the table. "You've got other options," he said. "There's nothing wrong with taking a more practical route." Brandon leaned against the wall, arms folded. "I already talked to someone at the diner on Jefferson," he said. "They need night help." I frowned. "You talked to them?" "Yeah," he said. "Figured you'd need something lined up." My mom gave a small, careful smile. "It's steady work, close by. That matters. Steady." That word landed softer than the others, but it stayed. I looked back at the fire. The last page collapsed inward, the corner folding until it disappeared completely. My real scores weren't in there. Neither were the applications I'd already sent. None of that was in the fire. But none of them asked. They didn't check. They didn't need to, because what they wanted wasn't the truth. It was something simpler. And I stood there, watching it burn, understanding that for them that was enough. I kept my head down the next morning. That was the part I got right. My mom slid a plate in front of me. Eat before your shift. I nodded. Didn't argue. Brandon walked in, phone in his hand. Manager texted, "You start tonight. 10 to 4. I said, "Okay." He looked up, like he was checking for resistance. "There wasn't any." "Good," he said. "See, this is already working." My dad folded his newspaper. "Structure helps." Structure. I almost laughed at that. Brandon tapped the table with his finger. "And we're done with the college talk." Right, I didn't answer right away. My mom stepped in. "Lila." I looked at her. "Yeah, we're done." That seemed to settle it. That's all it took. They didn't push further. Didn't ask anything else. Because the version of me they believed in was simple, small, predictable. I carried that version for them the rest of the day, moved slower, spoke less, kept everything flat. Honestly, it wasn't even that hard. When people expect less, you don't have to perform. That night, I left the house at 9:30. Brandon called out from the living room. "Don't be late," I said. "I won't." He added, "And don't quit after a week like last time." I didn't correct him. There was no last time. Outside, the air smelled like fryer oil from somewhere down the street. It stuck in my throat a little. I kept walking. I didn't go straight to the diner, turned left instead. 3 blocks down, the public library was still open. I went in, nodded at the front desk like I belonged there. Sat at the same computer I always used. Logged in. The screen flickered for a second, then loaded everything back up. My files, my code, my real application confirmations. Carnegie Mellon, University of Michigan, Stanford, all submitted, all waiting. I pulled up my scores, 1560, perfect math. I stared at it for a second, then closed the tab. Because that number didn't matter in that house. Only the other one did. The fake one. 1090. The one Brandon read out loud. The one they believed. I shut everything down, cleared the history, logged out. Back to normal. Back to small. Because as long as he thought I was nothing, he wouldn't look any closer. It didn't change overnight. That's the part that makes it easy to miss. No one said I was less. They just started treating me like I was. "Can you clean up before you leave?" My mom said one morning, pushing a plate toward me. "I will." Brandon didn't look up from his phone. "Do the living room too." "It's a mess." I nodded. My dad folded his newspaper. "You're around more now. It makes sense you help out." That phrase again. Makes sense. It showed up everywhere after that. Groceries. Laundry. Errands. "Take my card," my mom said one afternoon, "and keep the receipt." "I will." "Stick to what's on the list." Brandon added, "We're not wasting money." I said, "Okay." He smiled slightly, like everything was working exactly the way he planned. They didn't just give me tasks. They started telling people who I was. "Lila's working nights now," my mom said on the phone. Voice light. "It's been good for her. It keeps her grounded," Brandon added from across the room. My dad nodded. "Structure helps her." I stood there holding a trash bag, listening to them build something that sounded reasonable. That was the worst part. It sounded right. I didn't correct them. Didn't explain that I left after 9 and came back close to 5. Didn't say I barely slept. Because if I pushed back, they'd start asking questions. And if Brandon started asking, he wouldn't stop. A few nights later, I came home early, 2 in the morning. The house was quiet except for the refrigerator humming low in the kitchen. I saw the light under my door before I reached it. That stopped me. I opened it slowly. Brandon was inside. My closet was half open. My backpack on the bed. My drawer pulled out. "What are you doing?" I said. He didn't turn right away. Looking. For what, he picked up one of my notebooks. Flipped through it. "You've been off," he said. "Different. I work nights." "That's not what I mean." He set the notebook down and stepped toward my dresser. You think I don't notice things? There's nothing to notice, I said. He opened the top drawer, moved things around like he already had permission. I stepped closer. Get out of my room. He looked at me then, calm, measured. You don't get to talk to me like that, he said. Something in me tightened. You don't get to decide everything. He held my gaze for a second, then closed the drawer. Yeah, he said quietly. I do. He walked past me and out of the room. I stood there, staring at the open closet, the shifted things, the space he'd already claimed, and understanding exactly how careful I had to be now. The diner smelled like burnt grease and something sweet that never really went away. Table 4 needs refills, the manager said without looking at me. I got it. Move faster. Lila. I wasn't, though. Not really. I moved just enough to stay out of trouble. That was the trick. A guy at the counter tapped his cup. Hey, coffee. Coming. Decaf. He added. I poured regular anyway. He didn't notice. Nobody really noticed anything there. That helped. Where you from? One of the servers asked during a slow hour. Here. College. I shook my head. No. She shrugged. Same. That was the end of it. That's all it took to disappear. I finished my shift, counted tips in the back. $73 that night. I folded it tight, slipped it into my shoe. Did that every time? By the end of the second week, I had a little over $1,200 saved. Not much. Enough. At 4:15, I left through the side door. Didn't go home. Walked 3 blocks. Turned left again. Same path. Same place. The library. I signed in. Sat at the same computer. The screen flickered once. Then everything came back. Code first. Always code first. Lines I'd written the night before. Model adjustments. Error logs. I stared at it, then started fixing things. An hour passed. Maybe 2. Didn't feel it. A voice behind me said, "That's not beginner work." I froze, turned around. She was standing there, arms crossed. I recognized her after a second. Vanessa, Brandon's girlfriend. "You're up early." She said, "I work nights. I know where you work." She said, "I've been there." Of course she had. Her eyes went back to the screen. "What is that? Nothing. That's not nothing." I reached for the mouse. Tried to close the window. She stepped closer. "Wait." I stopped. "You wrote this?" she asked. "Yeah." "How long?" "A while." She leaned in slightly, scanning the code. "This is pattern detection." I didn't answer. She straightened, looked at me differently. "Who taught you? No one." That landed. She studied my face for a second. "Does Brandon know?" I shook my head. "Why not?" I hesitated. Because saying it out loud made it real. "He'd take it away," I said. Vanessa didn't react right away, didn't argue, just nodded once, slow, then "Don't let him see it," she said. Simple, like it was obvious, like it was possible. I looked back at the screen, at everything they thought didn't exist, and for the first time in a while it didn't feel invisible. Vanessa didn't tell anyone. That was the first thing I noticed. Next morning, she was at the kitchen table with Brandon, scrolling on her phone like nothing had happened. "Morning," she said when I walked in. "Morning." Brandon didn't look up. "You've got work tonight." "Yeah, don't be late." "I won't." Vanessa glanced at me, just for a second. Then back to her screen. Nothing in her face gave it away. That mattered more than anything she could have said. Later that week, she showed up at the diner. I almost didn't recognize her at first. She sat at the counter. "Coffee," she said. "Regular or decaf regular?" I poured it, set it down. She didn't touch it right away. "You left fast the other night," she said. "I had to get home. You always go to the library after your shift." I kept my voice even. "Sometimes." She nodded like she already knew the answer. "Sit for a second," she said. "I'm working. You've got 2 minutes." I hesitated. Then I sat. The seat was still warm from the last customer. Vanessa leaned in slightly. "You applied anywhere else I didn't answer." She held my gaze. "I'm not asking to expose you." That word, expose, I applied. I said quietly. "Where a few places. Names." I exhaled. Carnegie Mellon, Michigan, Stanford. She didn't react the way I expected. No surprise, no disbelief, just a small nod. "Okay," she said. "That tracks. That tracks." Like it made sense. Like I made sense. She tapped the counter once. "You get anything back yet?" "Not yet." "You will." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because no one had said that to me before. Not once. A plate slammed somewhere behind me. The sound echoed sharp against the metal. Vanessa reached into her bag, pulled out an envelope, set it on the counter between us. "What's that?" I said. "Don't open it here. I'm not taking that." "You are." "I can't." "You can," she said. "You just don't want to owe anyone." That hit. I stayed quiet. She slid it closer. "It's $1,500. I stared at it. "That's too much." "It's enough," she said. "For what?" "For when you need to leave before they tell you you can't." I didn't touch it, didn't move. Vanessa stood up. "Keep working," she said. "You're good at that." Then she walked out like nothing had changed, but everything had, because now someone else knew, and they still chose not to stop me. It happened 3 nights after Vanessa left the envelope. I didn't open it right away, kept it hidden under the lining of my shoe, walked around with it like it might disappear if I looked at it too long. That night, I got home late, closer to 5. The house was dark, but not quiet. I heard movement upstairs. Slow, careful, not normal. I stepped inside, closed the door gently. Lila Brandon's voice, from my hallway. My chest tightened. "I'm here," I said. "Come here." I walked down the hall. Each step felt louder than it should. My door was open. That was wrong. Brandon stood inside, my closet half pulled apart, clothes on the floor, my backpack unzipped. "What are you doing?" I said. He didn't turn around, looking. He said, "For what?" He picked up one of my notebooks, flipped through it. "You've been acting off," he said. "Coming home late. Not talking. I work nights. That's not what I mean." He tossed the notebook onto the bed. "You think I don't notice things? I stayed by the door. Didn't move closer. There's nothing to notice," I said. He laughed, short, sharp. "There's always something." He said, "You're just not smart enough to hide it well." That almost made me smile. Almost. He stepped toward my dresser, pulled the top drawer open. I felt it then, that drop in my stomach. My laptop wasn't there. Good. But the charger. He lifted it. "What's this for?" he said. "My phone." He looked at it, turned it in his hand. "This isn't your phone charger." I stepped forward, took it from him before I could think. "It's old," I said. "I forgot to throw it out." He watched me, not convinced. The air felt tight, like everything was about to snap. He moved past me, toward the corner, the loose floorboard. I swear, my heart stopped. He crouched slightly, reached down. "What's under here?" he said. I crossed the room in 2 steps. "Nothing," I said, too fast. He paused, looked up at me. That was the moment, the one where everything could break. "You're hiding something," he said. "No, I'm not." "You are." I held his stare, didn't blink, didn't back up, because if I did, he'd pull it open. Seconds passed, then he stood up, slow. "Whatever it is," he said quietly. "I'll find it." I didn't answer. He walked past me, stopped at the door. "You don't get ahead of me," he added. "Not in this house." Then he left. I stood there for a long time, listening to his footsteps fade. Then I dropped to the floor, pulled the board up. My laptop was still there. So was the envelope. $1,500. Still untouched. Not anymore. That was too close. Way too close. And I knew I couldn't wait much longer. I opened the envelope before breakfast, counted it once, then again. $1,500. No note, just folded bills. I sat there for a minute, the floorboard still loose under my foot, thinking through everything I'd already lined up. The email was still in my inbox. Regional finalist, travel partially covered, presentation required in person, not optional. At the table, Brandon was already talking. "Michigan's moving slow this year," he said. "I'm basically in. It's just timing." My mom smiled. "Of course you are." My dad nodded. "You've done everything right." I kept my eyes on my plate. Brandon looked at me. "You hear that?" "That's what effort looks like?" "I do," I said. He leaned back. "You'll get there. Just not like this. Not like this." I nodded once, because that part was true. Later, I texted the diner manager. "Can I take the double shift tonight and tomorrow?" A minute passed. Then, "If you can handle it," I replied, "I can." That was my cover. 2 nights. No questions. I packed light, laptop, charger, a change of clothes. Cash split between my bag and my shoe. At the door, my mom said, "You working late again? Double shift?" She frowned slightly. "Don't burn yourself out." "I won't." Brandon didn't look up. "Be back after your shift. Don't disappear." "I won't." That was the part that mattered. I stepped outside and kept walking, didn't turn toward the diner, turned toward the bus stop instead. The airport wasn't far, but it felt like a different place entirely. People moving fast. Announcements looping overhead, no one paying attention to anyone else. At the counter, the woman checked my ID. "You're flying for the interview." I nodded. "Yeah." She glanced at the screen. "They covered part of your travel." "That helps." "It does." She handed everything back. Gate 12. I walked away before my hands could start shaking. My phone buzzed. Brandon. I let it ring, then again, then again. I turned it off. At the gate, I sat down and held onto my bag tighter than I needed to. Everything I had was in it. Everything they didn't know. When boarding started, I stood up with everyone else. No announcement, no permission, no one stopping me, just a line moving forward. And this time I moved with it. I got back 2 days before Thanksgiving. No one asked where I'd been. That was the first thing I noticed. My mom just said, "You're back." "Good. We need help setting up." "I'll do it." Brandon was in the living room, talking louder than usual. "Michigan's still reviewing," he said into his phone. "It's basically a waitlist situation." Basically. I stepped past him. He ended the call and looked at me. "Where were you?" "Work. For 2 days, picked up extra shifts." He watched me for a second, then nodded. "Good," he said. "At least you're taking something seriously." I didn't answer. Later that night, my parents sat with him at the table. My dad said, "Even a waitlist at Michigan is strong." My mom added, "It shows potential." Brandon leaned back. "I'm not worried." Of course he wasn't. They weren't either. Because they believed him. Because they always had. I stood at the counter, cutting vegetables, listening to them build something that wasn't real. My mom glanced over. "Make sure everything's ready for Thursday." "I will." "This is important," she said. "Family's coming." Brandon smirked. "Yeah, let's make a good impression." He looked at me when he said that. I kept cutting. Didn't react. Didn't give him anything. Because the bigger his story got, the less room there was for it to survive. The morning of Thanksgiving. The house was loud. Voices, doors, plates stacking. My dad straightened his shirt. Let's keep things smooth today. My mom nodded. No tension. Brandon adjusted his watch. Relax. I've got it handled. Handled. I stood there, holding a tray, watching all of them settle into the version of reality they'd built. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was inside it anymore. Thanksgiving started like it always did. Too many voices, plates clinking. My mom moving fast between the stove and the table. Careful with that. She said when I picked up a tray. I've got it. Brandon stood at the head of the table, talking like he was already somewhere else. Michigan's just waiting on timing, he said. I'm basically in... My dad nodded. He's always been ahead. Always. I set the tray down and sat without saying anything. Dinner moved, small talk, someone laughing too loud. Then my grandfather spoke. So, Brandon, he said. What's your plan? Pre-med, Brandon answered. Which track? Brandon smiled. Standard. Define it, my grandfather said. Silence. Brandon shifted in his seat. It's flexible. Name one requirement, my grandfather said. Brandon didn't answer. My mom jumped in. Let's not do this, my dad added. He's already proven himself. Brandon nodded like that should have closed it. It almost did. Then my phone rang. I felt it in my pocket and ignored it. Vanessa looked at me. Pick it up. I'll call back. Pick it up, she said again. The table went quiet. I pulled it out. Unknown number. I answered. Hello, is this Lila Hart? Yes. This is the admissions office from Stanford University. Everything stopped. We're calling to inform you that you've been admitted with a full tuition scholarship. No one moved. We were very impressed with your application, the voice said. Your work stood out. I understand, I said. My voice didn't shake. We look forward to having you. The call ended. I lowered the phone. Brandon was staring at me. Not angry, just gone. My mom spoke first. Lila. What was that? That was Stanford. My dad shook his head. That doesn't add up. It does. Brandon leaned forward. You didn't apply. I did. With what he said. We saw your scores. You saw what I let you see. That landed. My mom's voice tightened. Why would you do that? I looked at her. Because you chose him before you chose the truth. No one answered. Brandon stood up. This doesn't change anything. It already had. I didn't argue. Didn't raise my voice. I didn't need you to believe me, I said. And that was it. Later that night, I packed again. Same bag. Same system. Vanessa stood by the door. You're really going? Yeah. She nodded. Good. I stepped outside. Cold air. Quiet street. No one followed. And honestly, if you've ever sat at a table where someone decided who you were before you spoke, you get this. I didn't fix them. I didn't wait for them to understand. I just left. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just done. And that was enough.